Heavenly Creator, thank you for the many blessings of today. Be present with us as we ponder the thoughts of your blessed servants from Thursday night, and let their insights illumine and fire our hearts and minds. Amen.
Thank you.
Kelly is my co-host today, and the format we're going to proceed is like last week's. We'll have two topics, topic one and topic two, to explore, and then have a breakout room after those discussions. I will leave more room, longer time in the breakout rooms than last week. They were a little bit rushed, so we're going to leave about 10 minutes in the breakout rooms, and then return and report any insights or comments from the breakout rooms, and then move on to topic two. So let's see, let me share the screen here and get started on our, come on, slideshow. There we go. The topic, of course, was faith in uncertain times. As a memory jog, here are the speakers from the evening, and they're in their respective positions. Because occasionally I'll be talking about, when we talk about our topics, we're going to quote the participants and what they, some of the various things I said. There was so much material, though, that Kelly and I were speaking about how to break it down. There was a lot of metaphor and religious poetry in there that would take many, many classes to enjoy and to unravel. We had to choose a topic or two to really focus our time. So these are our two topics that we decided to try. One is the church has left the building, and that is about the not being together and having to rethink everything as we go forward. And the second topic that came through a lot of, all these topics were woven together, but these are the ones we pulled out. The second one was about chaos and uncertainty and our faith in those kind of times. And that was when Pastor Smith mentioned the liminal space, the ongoing not knowing. We're not here and we're not there. We are in
here and not there
process. Exactly. So let's, the first one, the church has left the building. Now, Shannon quoted straight from it. The church has literally left the building, and we're trying to figure out how to live that out. She also pointed out very strongly to avoid the temptation to go back to the way things were. She said at the very end, I thought it was great, we cannot go back to the old ways. It's time to move ahead. That was also reflected with Reverend Smith's in the beginning. We said, let us start rebuilding. And then he was reflecting what his congregants were telling him. Let's move on. Let's do this. Let's not try to go back. Let's rethink how we're doing things and move forward. Reverend Moss had some great insights into that. He pointed out to everybody that Jesus, of course, never had a building. They moved on. They did it. They did it on the fly. And he mentioned faith is for unsettled times like this. And he went into a really nice discussion of how we need to separate ourselves from the physical collection of ourselves in the building. That he mentioned we had created an idol out of the way we did worship. The physical worship should be a time and a ritual that points us toward meaning, but we sort of deified the ritual and forgot the meaning. If we're not together, what do we do on a Sunday morning as Christians, and what do we do through the rest of the week if we don't have the physical building to collect us? And I thought he had a great point about the people, and many pastors mentioned this, their work now, their ministry is growing and is not tied to the building. So they're bringing in people who are not members of their own church for their food drives and for their phone banks and such. That they've never set foot in the church, and if they had, Now upcoming, they might not come in again because of, even if we get out of the lockdown, many people will not set foot physically in the church again. And that's great, as long as if they still want to keep doing ministry. But how do we teach them the church history, the church methodology that can and ground them in scripture as they pursue their good trouble in the city? He also talked a little bit about the difference between theater and cinema, which I thought got kind of deep in the weeds, but mentioning the physical sensations of a church ceremony in church is theatrical, whereas now we're all on screens and it's cinematic, and that changes the way pastors present the Word of God, how they engage people, how they bring them and inspire them to do better work in their lives and in their communities. And it's another way of communicating. It's a little colder, but it's the way we are now. It's the way we live now. A lot of these ideas were also reiterated by David Crawford from McCormick Seminary, and saying this is how he and the staff at the seminary now approach their training of seminarians to get out in the world, to make their faith active, and finding identifying the problems in the world, not just retreating to a seminary, but getting out, finding the actors and the agents that are involved and seeing how to change them in real time. That involved, he mentioned the service or the ministry at Cook County Jail, which emerged from somebody saying, I feel like I'm stuck in jail. I'm stuck at home, I'm in lockdown. I feel like I'm in jail. And he thought, well, this is not jail in any real sense. So let's not just pray about it. Let's get in there. Let's talk about the needs of the prisoners. Let's talk to the Cook County Sheriff and the state's attorney and see what can be done for equity in society, how to live a Christian witness in the structures of society. There were many more details that I've forgotten, but that's, if you saw the recording of Thursday night's talk, you might remember some of them. Finally, I'm sorry to keep this going, but I think we should get to the breakout sessions. Now, Reverend Smith here, Pastor Smith, had some of the most eloquent things to say Thursday night, so heartfelt and so point on that it took my breath away. If you haven't looked at the recording again, go back and enjoy it and be moved. He just lived it so thoroughly, and he had so many good points to bring up and so much emotional and spiritual energy to it. And it was phenomenal. I wish we could explore it. I wish we could have him for 4 weeks, but we can't. His ideas about the churches left the building. He was talking about his church down in Bronzeville, and how in the 10 months since COVID started, he's got 10 times as many people involved in active daily ministry than he had back in March of 2020. And it's brought a whole new level of energy to that assembly. One of them he mentioned was the phone tree that they call it the touch ministry. They've initiated 2 new ministries, 2 or 3, he said, in their church. One is a touch ministry, and that's an outreach phone tree for people. And he says now they're up to 6,000 people a week reaching out. They had been at about 4,000, and now it's up to 6,000. And it's just reaching out to people, saying, what do they need? How are you feeling? What do you need in your life? And what can we do? And many of these people are not members of his assembly, of his congregation, he said. That's also true of the food bank that he initiated, decided to fund straight out of church funds, got it going, had some outside donations, which kept it going. And then it spread out of his church and into other communities in the South Side, into Latino communities and into Asian communities. And he just thought that was, it was the hand of God making that happen. And it got people out of their physical building. And he had a great wrap up of one passages, saying that makes church real for people. It makes the work of the body of Christ clear on an individual level, and it births something that I think is unstoppable. And it was great to hear. And this would not have happened had people not gotten impatient in his congregation, said, what can we do? And let's do it. Let's try it. If we're not together, let's find new ways to do it. So these are the kind of things I want you to think about when we go into our breakout session, that we might never get back to the physical building in the way that it was. We will do some, but many of us might not step back into the physical building. What does that do for us? What does that do for our faith? And can we find new ways of living our faith if we're more in isolation? Here are the two questions I'd like people to consider. And we don't, this is more of a discussion.
Could I make
Sorry?
just a quick comment before you move into the questions?
Yeah, Lucy.
Last week, those of you that were with us, we did discuss the question out of one of the articles that we read, that you led actually, Jim, about what happens if post-COVID nothing changes. And I think in a sense, what this is guiding and the way that you're leading us today toward that question really is, the church has left the building. Do we just come back and do everything the same once we go back? And I think in a way that there's some relevancy of pulling that thread forward as well, because it really was interesting that, that the panel really did address in a very, very interesting way that question of what has changed, and then, and also around racial justice, what has changed and how now do we see the world in new ways, and is God calling us into new ministries? So I just wanted to kind of pull last week into today for those of you that were with us.
Thank you. The one comment I might make, my first reaction to Thursday night's session was that it was a session for pastors and not lay people. But as I went back to the recording and listened to it, they were reflecting all the needs and wishes of the people in their congregations as leaders of the congregation. So in a way, these questions, they're very personal for us to examine in ourselves, and it really causes us to step up and become a bigger part of the body of Christ, the body of the church, because now we do not have the easy way of sitting back, or we should not want to go back to the easy way of showing up on Sunday, listening, serving on a committee, and then going home. So when we do our breakouts, which are coming up, see what time it is. Here are the questions I'd like people to talk about. We won't have there's no answer to today, but these are workshops to examine our ideas. In what ways can you imagine the church will not retreat to the way things used to be in worship and ministry, for specifically or in general? How do we stop not going back to the way things had been? How do we embrace what's coming forward? And how can Fourth Church use this new reality of remote congregation, of that and everything else, and the lockdown and things like that, to do good for the members of our community, for our own members and for the community? If everyone's ready, if anyone has a question, I'll take it, but I'm going to move on and give you folks time to talk about it in your breakout rooms. I hope people will take the time to introduce themselves and quickly around the circle, mention if you've watched the entire recording, and then explore these questions. And we'll come back in about 10 minutes. So let me do the breakout. And I will send you off to Kansas on this twister, and we will see each other back in 10 or 11 minutes. Let's move on to our second topic, if we can. I'm going to hand it to Kelly because we want to get people out of here at a decent time. So Kelly, if I put up the screen, were you ready to begin?
Oh, sure.
I mean, a lot was spoken about at the breakout rooms. I don't know if we have time to explore all of it right now. So Kelly, you're on. Hold on.
Is the,
Oh, how about that? Let's resume it.
okay, I think this is a section where we're talking about chaos and change. And, you know, everything must change, everything did change. And so I think our question is, how are we going to deal with that moving forward? Because I think we run the risk of, once the church opens, of going back, sitting in the pews, and leaving on the, you know, the wayside all of this Zoom interaction that we've had. So, and I love this statement here. I've learned to improvise by faith and not by sight. I like that, because by sight we do see the ugliness, and we need to bring our faith in to deal with everything that we're seeing. How do I scroll down here? To the next. Yeah, we do need to have courageous conversations with each other, deep listening, you know, seeking out diversity, embracing ambiguity. And we do need to learn to trust each other, especially in the new environments that we're dealing with. So I loved what Shannon had to say about that. I can't scroll down, Jim.
I'm just going to go slide by slide.
Oh, I find hope and pain in the struggle. As a mother, I realize you can't have creation without the pain and struggle of birth. My prayer is that the church might be a midwife, and we're going to deal with that in our breakout sessions. I'd be interested to hear what other people think about the midwife. Next. And this is another going to be part of our question. I believe it was, who is this, Otis? I can't see the names.
That's Ozzie Smith.
Ozzie Smith. You got to keep the cement wet. I don't know if you heard that. I loved, Jim was saying poetry of thought. All of these ministers were so eloquent with their thoughts. But so we'll be discussing this. You got to keep the cement wet and fluid so that you can make changes to your foundation. And this be creatively maladjusted to sameness. We can't go back to the same way we were. I think we're going to be missing out on a lot of interaction with a lot of new people. Next. So our questions are going to be, we're going to be dealing with the two metaphors that were brought up. Keep the cement dry and the church as a midwife. Do either of these inspire you with new ways to approach your vision of your church? And then ambiguity and change are uncomfortable. What are some ways to move that discomfort? I can't even read the pictures are there. So those will be the two questions that we're dealing with in the breakout sessions.
Okay, I'm going to break people out again. Let's find that. Were those groups too large, or were they the right size?
Just right.
Right size.
Just right? Good. Then I'm going to send you all off again. And click on the link, the button there. You have about 10 or 12 minutes to think about these questions. Connie, there should be a window to click.
No,
Yeah.
I'm having terrible problems with my computer. I can usually fix things, but I can't get it. I can't see you. You can see me and I can hear you. So
Yeah.
just tell me the question.
Oh, well, the question, okay, you don't have anything on your screen. We're just going to examine the questions about how do we use this chaos to and the uncertainty of the current times to rethink the church, to bring something new into the world. Shannon had her her metaphor as a church as a midwife, and she said that change can't come without pain. We can't have Easter if we don't have Good Friday. So she said we can't bring something into the world without we can't bring creation into the world as a mother without the pain of birth. So she thought that this is a time to not embrace that pain, but realize it is an important thing, and that we are going to come out differently on the other side of it. And Ozzie Smith had a metaphor that was so strange that I had to look at it twice about keeping. I mean, I did. The black pastors are pretty elaborate. You know, they're pretty flowery in some of their discussions. But he said that we have to keep the concrete wet. We have to keep the cement wet, because he came from a family of bricklayers, and his father used to say, keep the cement wet, so that if a brick went in and it became misaligned, it wouldn't be stuck. You could change it, you could move it. So I think from that he means, how do we bring an attitude forward of being comfortable with change and using that change to more fully bring God's kingdom into the world. And if those metaphors attracted you or not. Oh, what's up, Linda?
I'm leaving.
You're leaving?
I have to leave for the ushers.
Okay, well,
Sorry.
leave your key on the desk. So, and the other part of the questions were ambiguity and change are certainly uncomfortable. What are some ways we could use to move through this discomfort? And I was picturing something like, prayer, outreach, and also keeping an eye on the future. Ozzie Smith kept talking about his jazz background, his jazz musical background. And he said that straight ahead jazz is really hard to listen to, but they're always thinking of the next, they always have their eyes pointed on the horizon, on the next thing. They don't worry about, it moves so fast that some people can't follow it. They certainly can't hum it. Like he said, you can hum Duke Ellington, you can't really hum Sun Ra or Ornette Coleman, but they're looking beyond. So I would argue that sometimes imagining what can come will alleviate some of the pain and challenges we face now in our current situation as a congregation and as a church as a whole. Because no one wants to be uncomfortable. And we can't let that discomfort move us out of the fight, move us out of the things that are being birthed, let's say.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the word change keeps coming up, but what kind of change are we talking about? What I mean, I know outreach and to improve our outreach and inclusiveness, but are we talking about changes in the worship service? What are we talking about in change?
I think we're talking about general social change. We're talking about social equity, demands for social equity, which have been highlighted. The disparities in culture have been highlighted by COVID and our lockdown and by the unrest of last summer. Can we go forward with business as usual? If everyone is cured of the virus next week, what's going to happen? What are we going to do moving forward as Christians? Not just as like, can we worship together? Those are kind of the parts of our situation, like can't be together physically, but also what do we do? Can we just be the Fourth Presbyterian Church sitting on Michigan Avenue with the things that have kind of become revealed this year with COVID and with the racial unrest?
But I never hear anything specific. Like, are we going to exchange choirs with a church that is African American? Are we going to, are there any specific ideas that have been proposed with regard to that kind of interaction and promotion of social equity?
there are things that are being discussed, and the church is orienting toward a big emphasis on social justice. You know, there's now the Committee on Racial Equity. We are reaching out to brother and sister congregations in the city. These are discussions that didn't have to happen, and will kind of wither on the vine if we don't pay attention to them.
I get it. That's good. That's good.
And like, you know, the prison ministry we've started now, that died for a while for lack of attention. And you know, it's been a rough year for most people. It's been a rough year for everyone.
What about interaction among the little children? Can we find ways that perhaps our little preschoolers and young children could interact more with the children of other churches that are perhaps African American or Asian?
Mhm. You know, that's what the youth leaders do with the teenagers. They do the homeless immersion to bring them into parts of the city they've never seen or experienced. That's a great program that gets kids out there. Like, okay, here's your day. You have to go get your social security card here, and then you've got to go down here to get your check, and then you got to find a place to live tonight. And they take the bus up and down, you know, Western Avenue, trying to figure these things out. They have tried to do some things, I think, with the after school kids, the tutoring kids. They've tried to mix the groups from the tutoring classes with our Sunday school. It's been difficult with resistance on both sides. But that's the kind of thing, you know, it would be great. People are not receptive to it, but how can we make them receptive? What can you know, maybe we had a few years ago, we used to have an arts celebration, an arts festival in a September weekend, and bring the girls from the dance groups at Cabrini Green, and you know, and use that as a method to bring people together. You know,
It's all good.
yeah. So it's not business as usual, and it's great to hear Shannon in her speeches saying that we just can't go back. It's not what God wants us to do. There will be resistance and there will be discomfort, but you know, some people think we've done enough or we're doing too much. I get that, you know, in the adult ed committee. It's like, I'm tired of classes about X, you know, I'm tired of classes on social inequity. And it's like, that may be, but we're also like, this is a big effort right now.
Right.
And
I agree.
like, oh, we've heard enough, or, you know, I don't want this and that. And it's like, yeah, well, we're going to keep pulling. We're going to keep pulling everybody along as best we can. So I'm trying to think.
Where is everybody?
Couple more minutes to bring them in. I'm sorry. Yeah. All right, I think I'm going to bring back people.
Gone?
No, I think I'll bring them.
Everybody gone?
I lost track of my timer. I'm going to give them one more minute, then I'm going to call them all back, which will be 2 minutes total.
It was just two of us?
It's just two of us. You're in the host breakout room, so enjoy the croissants.
Yeah, right.
It's fancy. Have you seen the entire video from Thursday, which is now online?
I did find through Lucy's introduction, and I did find through the first pastor, and then about the middle of the second pastor, the middle of his talk, every other sentence was shutting me down, was freezing.
Right.
And I really, my computer is almost 7 years old, so I think I'm going to have to face the fact that I'm just having too many problems. especially now with the Zoom. This is a real problem for me. So I may have to just look for, research new computer. Have you heard anything about the cloud or the starts with a C? Oh, well, anyway.
You mean like a
I'm gonna have to
Chromebook?
research. The Chromebook. Have you heard any good or bad about that?
It's good. Yeah. It's, your physical laptop in your hands doesn't have, it's much lighter and doesn't have all the software.
I
And,
need that.
it stores things, but you just have to get used to working online, and it stores, Google and everything will have, they will have the software for you to use online.
Yeah, I understand. I understand that part too.
Yeah.
And I definitely need something smaller and lighter.
Yeah. My
That's
wife's
what
school, my wife's school uses them. So
Oh, that's good.
very portable and
Is that elementary school or high
Yes.
school?
elementary.
Oh, well, I just was curious about that. So I'm just having terrible problems now with the Zoom especially, and that's huge now, So, but at least I can hear everybody.
We all back now?
We're all
Hi.
back.
Hi, Kelly.
Would anyone like to share their thoughts with their breakout group?
Or with the earlier group that I cut off quickly. I
Oh, I can
apologize.
go to the earlier group.
Roger?
I'll take a shot. Thank you, Judy. In our group, we were talking about how things are going to be different. And one of the things that Judy raised, and I concur with, is that we could have a committee or a council at church organized around enhancing and advancing technology and doing more for providing access either to people in the tutoring program or to seniors who don't have easy access to the facilities that we could offer.
And I had even said, I don't know if I said this before, when we were talking about, is it colder not to be in the sanctuary? I have said, I think this is more intimate. Talking to people, you can go to the church and sit by yourself in the pew and you don't really talk to anybody. And this almost forces you, you're looking at people, you're talking to them one-on-one, and even with Shannon's sermons, there she is right there. Where you're sitting 50 rows back, you don't really get that perspective. So anybody else?
One thing in our first group is that we found out that we're all involved in different sort of mission-focused ministries at the church, and Fourth has a lot of external ministries.
Yeah.
And so one of the things we might do is get some kind of a roster, who's who, what are the things, what are the connections we have? We have St. Sabina, we have Trinity, we have whatever it might be. Yeah, Mount Sinai, Interfaith, whatever it might be. There's all kinds of opportunities for people who want to do more and want to connect more and figure out what kind of midwife they want to be and how wet their cement is to try to, get onto some kind of program.
Well, that
I
sounds
think
like it could be right up Robert Crouch's alley, because he's the one with his hands on the whole volunteer ministry.
Yeah, we could use VOMO to provide those kinds of connections.
I think in both of our small groups, we focus more on reaching out and listening to different groups instead of coming up with the solution. We should be listening to other groups to see what they want us to do.
Right.
So it was more of we need to really bring the other groups to the table, and we take a back seat. And like I said at one of the small groups, instead of us being the teachers, let's us be the students and hear and learn what we can do to support them. I hate the word them, to support everybody, right? It's not a them, us thing.
Right. That was a big message on Thursday night's discussions as well.
I was watching my 14-year-old nephew. I stayed with he and my sister during the holidays, and he was taking his virtual school, and teachers were talking at him in 6 different sessions, and the student never got to express the dialogue about what they were absorbing. So it kind of paralleled what we're doing at church. I used to go to 2-hour lunches. I used to go to breakout sessions and interact on what was going on. And then even some of us exchanged phone numbers and said, let's touch point on Tuesday, because maybe you're just saying, how's it going? What's your special thing since, of the week? And some people just say, I watched this show and I saw how one person interacted with their faith, or I had this with my child and, even not in our congregation, but others. I like that relationship building. I like the action once you've, even if it's action to open your ears and listen. So I personally need that because my holiday group is gone, the people that were in my quote bubble, but now it's January and it's cold and classes are closed. So that may be the next evolution of cementing or birthing.
Excellent.
Thank you, by the way. Thank you very much.
Drew, please join us at Horizon Bible Study for Women. We are exactly the group you're talking about. We meet twice a month on the 2nd and 4th Wednesday at noon, and we make phone calls in between, and we're a Bible study, but we're a friend group.
I'll jot that. Thank you, Linda. Also, maybe sharing phone numbers for those people that want to go the extra step.
I was saying,
Mastermind group.
I know one thing.
joined Horizon during the last couple of weeks, so I didn't have an experience with it in person, and it's been a very rewarding online experience, the Horizon.
I've heard a lot of people saying that it's actually easier to get involved now because they don't necessarily want to get dressed and come down, especially in the winter months to church, but that they're finding it easier to become involved with these different adult ed, these different committees. And I think that's wonderful. And we should continue moving forward with that. That's interactive faith. So
Yeah, Kelly, I agree. And it is not lost on any of us as we look to plans for reopening. I would suspect there will be a lot of what I would call hybrid opportunities where people could be in person, but also have the opportunity to do something with Zoom. We also are even opening that up with people that are going to be new officers or people that may be remote part of the year and have the option of being able to be a part of a committee, even if they're not, or an officer, even if they're not present. So any ideas like those are welcome to any of the pastoral staff and any of the committees, and also thoughts that you have, and Kathy Kidder as well, who's on the call. So anyway, just so you know, that's not, we're not ignoring that. It's actually a propelling thing for us. So thank you.
Well, it might be as simple as what Drew was mentioning of informing people on the regular of the groups that are out there, that we can reach out to the weekly groups, the monthly groups, because you get one email and you lose it. But if you get just for these outreach kind of things, not a committee work, but simple outreach to our friends and our fellow Presbyterians, and it's especially after the holidays like now.
I think also we need permission to send it on, right? Like, here's an interesting class at Fourth Pres that you might be interested in. You're allowed to come, right? I'm allowed to send that to people who are not in the church. I don't want to I mean, it's kind of evangelistic, I suppose, but I'm very concerned about the wider community, that the church is
Right.
both, it seems to be kind of insular. We're talking to each other. I know I've said this before in my groups, and that, even in the physical structure of the church itself, when we put Black Lives Matter sign up there, the wider community that was walking by there every day, or people in the neighborhood, didn't understand what that was all about, because we don't have an outreach to that wider, the physical community at the church, and we don't have an outreach. We don't have permission to reach out to or invite people into our classes. People often say to me, is it okay if I invite somebody to come to blank? Right? That permission's not there.
Well, I invited people to attend Thursday's forum and also this class. I don't know
I did too.
that people aren't allowed to
did I.
extend invites.
Yeah, I've not heard that.
I'm not particularly saying we're not allowed to. I'm just saying
There's a perception.
there's a perception. There
Yeah.
needs to be some kind of blanket, invite your friends
Yeah.
and neighbors and people in the community, anybody you want, kind of thing. There is a perception that it's closed only to us.
Yeah. That's the institutional angle to it all.
But we got to actively work to, debunk that perception.
Yeah, I've never heard that. But that's interesting that people think that.
Well, reaching out, as chair of Delta Ed, I'm looking at the classes and thinking, well, my friend, we have a class on Gerald Griffin's art coming up around Easter. It's like, I know plenty of people who would want to see the artist's tour of his own studio and his thoughts on the racial paradigm, or it's called Shifting the Paradigm, but it's about the identity of Black people in art and creating art. And it's like, I know so many people who would appreciate that. So you just got to look at what is available to people and maybe branch out and think that's what my old boss would enjoy watching, even though he or she is not a churchgoer. But it's those kind of things. We're all used to stretching out these days.
So Jim and Kelly, are there things coming up? We probably need to close out because we have worship coming up. Are there things coming up that you want to let people know about?
Today we start back with Foundations of Faith with Jeff Doan at 12:30. He'll be talking about the prophets and many voices of prophecy that he started in the fall. Next Tuesday, we start a class with Carol Allen on creating God's beloved community using the Book of Acts and the scholarship of Willie James Jennings about how the early church fathers. Carol, you could explain this better than me, but
Is it
The early
Tuesday?
Jews and Gentiles
Isn't that Sunday?
to
It's
perform.
Sunday. You must say that first, please.
oh, I'm sorry.
That's all we need.
It's going to be a really great examination of how early church fathers, the early church fathers and
Sunday,
mothers.
isn't it? It's
I'm sorry?
next Sunday.
It's Sunday coming up.
Yeah,
Sunday, not, I thought I heard Tuesday.
you
Sorry.
did.
They're all blending together. I mean, what can I say? So Sunday, our next class for 6 weeks will be that examination of Acts and the recreation of God's beloved community on earth as portrayed in the Book of Acts. And in the first Tuesday of February 2nd, I'll be leading a book discussion with the author of the book, Jesus and John Wayne, how toxic masculinity corrupted a faith and distorted a nation. And it's really very fascinating. She's a professor at Calvin University. And she goes back 80, 90 years to talk about how marketing and social movements like women in the workforce and World War II, how that really revved up Christian evangelical communities to the point where we think that the president is Rambo, and a combination of Rambo and Jesus and Moses. And it's a fascinating book. If you have a chance to read it, be a fascinating discussion. So that's first Tuesday of February.
And Jim, I wanted to mention too that I think Gerald Griffin's at the next Cornerstones on February 5th.
Yes, he is.
He'll be speaking then.
I've had a hard time trying to get Jesus and John Wayne. And I could get it on Amazon, but it wouldn't arrive in enough time for me to complete the reading.
Oh.
So you mentioned Willie James Jennings.
Yes.
And if there are books involved, if you could please put out the notice, if possible, a couple months ahead of time, so we could get the book. Because as I said, I can't get Jesus and John Wayne. And I'll look for Jennings, whom I really like. So.
Carol, do you have the name of,
Pardon me?
Carol, do you have the name of the book at the tip of your tongue?
Theological commentary on the book of Acts by Willie James Jennings. And I'll be referring to it because I know not everybody may have that commentary, but it's a theological commentary on the book of Acts. Jennings is on the Yale Divinity School faculty. I think he's terrific in his understanding of scripture and history and what Jews and Gentiles were trying to create together, but how empire and church and state kept getting in their way. I kept wanting to leap out of my seat and say amen as I was reading him.
Yeah.
That'll be an excellent class. Regan, do you have something to say?
I just would like to, on Tuesday at 4:00, the church is ringing bells, its bells for a commemoration of people who have died of COVID this year. So I'd like to ask the church if they could send that message out to the Greater North Michigan Avenue Association and Sinai, people who will hear the bells, the 900 building manager maybe, and, we won't expect shoppers particularly, or there's no diners really to stop and pause, but at least to try to incorporate the neighborhood around that's going to hear the bells into, it's like a way of showing them who we are, what we're doing. When you hear this is what it's for, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Reagan,
Tuesday when?
We will be doing that. Thank you. Tuesday at 4:30, I believe. It's the commemoration. It's a national commemoration of people who have died of COVID. And the churches all over the nation will be ringing bells or doing whatever they have on their buildings to commemorate them.
And Jim, I have some housekeeping issue for you. I tried to register for Carol's class a few days ago and it wasn't up.
Not up yet. It'll be up on Monday. It will be up on Monday. We already looked into that.
Thank you.
If I ran the publications division, you'd be seeing this stuff constantly, but I do not.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, everybody, thank you very much for a great discussion.
Thank you.
Glad you could all make
Excellent
time for
class.
us.
Thank you.
Nice to be with everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great week.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Lucy.
Bye-bye.
Bye, thank you.
Bye, Kelly.